Today we are doing a tier list for NFT use cases. Mostly all we see today is apes and other luxury bullshit. So here we have some actual use cases that we'll rate and discuss their pros and cons. Some of them will be great, some of them will be probably next to useless. So let's start with property. Well, property is kinda interesting because it would be very convenient to have all of the information and all of the changes regarding the property in one place as immutable records. And it would potentially really simplify real estate transactions and probably decrease the fraud. Also, it could make the process of buying and selling properties a bit easier and a bit cheaper. Like, I guess that you would pay a bit smaller fees and you wouldn't have to pay that much for a real estate agent. But then again, how do you regulate this and how you deal with the legal issues that could arise? Digitizing the land ownership could be very tricky, and I have no ideas how you could do this. So this is the first con. Also, I think that it could potentially lead to privacy concerns, because if you buy a property, you probably wouldn't want to have the details of the property available online, would you? And aside from this, you probably heard about the huge deals and real estate agents making like millions on celebrity mansions in one transaction. So there would probably be a pretty big gatekeepers, and it's not that easy to implement something like this. And lastly, the hell do we even need the real property for if we all can live in the metaverse? Overall, I think it could be an A tier.
The next one is medical record. For the pros, it will be the security and integrity. So NFTs offer security and tamper-proof characteristics. It can be more resistant to hacking or maybe unauthorized access, and it ensures the privacy. The next thing for the pros is the decentralization. So NFTs can be stored in the decentralized manner across the blockchain network, and it reduces the reliance on centralized servers, minimizing the risk of data loss, maybe due to the failures or maybe the cyber attacks. Other thing is the patient control. So NFTs can give patients greater control over their medical data. If they want to share specific healthcare providers, maybe, or the researchers, the stuff that they have, they can also in the same time maintain ownership and the control over their record. For the cons, on the other side, it's very complex. Integrating NFTs into existing healthcare systems would require significant technical expertise and may be challenging, and of course it will be very expensive for that. Also, the scalability is the problem because the blockchain networks currently have limitations in terms of scalability and processing large amounts of data, and it will be for sure large amount of data. Another risk is the risk of losing maybe your private keys or any stuff that you need to access your data. So if you lose them, you will lose actually inevitable the access to your healthcare data. And also one of the most common stuff, it's smart contract risk. So you can exploit the smart contract and something may happen to your medical data. It may be the vulnerable one.
Next one is loyalty and rewards programs. And it's not like buying 2 apes and getting one free, but instead it's just about buying simple goods. It could probably make the customer experience a bit more personalized and buying stuff a bit funnier, but why don't you just buy an ape instead? And aside from this, immutable record of customer reward is fine, but do you really need this? I don't think so. Also, can you imagine like Walmart implementing all this shit? I think it's ludicrous and not really possible. And probably the majority of the customers wouldn't understand the NFTs as rewards program, and you would have to educate them, and doing this would cost you a shit ton of money. So overall, it seems pretty bad, but not the worst. So let's say it's a C tier.
Another one. So the NFT as patents and intellectual property. For the first pros, it's ownership and authenticity. So NFTs may provide a way to verify authenticity and origin of a particular piece of IP, reducing the risk of plagiarism and infringement. Another one is a tamper-proof record. So NFTs are stored on a blockchain which offers immutability and tamper resistance. Once a patent or IP asset is represented as an NFT, its details and ownership history are securely recorded and cannot be altered retroactively. For the next one, it will be the licensing and royalty management. So NFTs can be programmed with smart contracts that facilitate automatic royalty payments to creators whenever their IP is used or licensed. This automated process can simplify and streamline royalty management. The next one will be the global access and marketplaces. So NFT marketplaces enable creators to reach a global audience without intermediaries. They can list their patients or IP assets for sale, licensing, or maybe crowdfunding directly to interested parties worldwide. And the last one for the pros, from the main ones, is a fractional ownership. So NFTs can be divided into smaller fractions, enabling fractional ownership of patents and IP, and this opens up possibilities for collaborative efforts and investment in valuable IP assets. On the other side, we have some cons. So legality and enforceability. While NFTs can represent ownership of digital asset, their legal status for patents and complex intellectual property rights might vary across different jurisdictions. So, the existing legal framework may need to adapt to recognize NFTs as valid representations of IP ownership. Another stuff is a patent complexity. So, patents are often complex legal documents, and representing them through NFTs may not capture all the nuances and details required for their full understanding and enforcement, or at least it will be very challenging to do so. The other thing is intellectual property verification. So verifying the authenticity and accuracy of the IP represented by an NFT may still require a legal review and due diligence process. This could add time and cost to the overall IP management process. And also one of the most important is the smart contract risk, of course. So it may happen that there's something malicious in this, there's some errors, there may be some hackers, right? So that's not like 100% the proof of it.
And next is identity verification. And this one is very interesting because you probably know how big of a hassle getting any kind of ID in the real world is. It just takes too much time and too many people to issue documents like this. So it could potentially save tons of time and money, and also it could be a bit more secure. Actually, it could be extremely hard to breach a well-developed decentralized system. Also, there are people across the world who lack the official identification, so it could be useful for them. But then again, global standardization and regulation pretty tough to implement and pretty tough to adopt. And the last and probably the biggest problem is that it takes only a few newbie college students that write some shitty code for a minimum wage, and then all of the info would be leaked, and everybody would know that you watch hentai and own a waifu pillow. But nevertheless, it's still an S tier.
And another one. So, NFT as real-world asset authenticity. So, for the pros, it will be the provenance and traceability. NFTs can record the entire ownership of history and transactional chain of a physical asset on the blockchain. So this feature provides a transparent and verifiable record on the asset's origin and ownership, ensuring its authenticity. Another thing is the anti-counterfeiting. So NFTs can be linked to physical assets through unique identifiers, for example, such as RFID tags or QR codes maybe, so making it difficult for the counterfeiters to replicate or replace genuine assets with fake ones. Other things, of course, the immutable records. So once recorded on the blockchain, the information associated with an NFT is immutable and tamper-proof. And also the global accessibility. So it's easily accessible via global. You know that. So on the other hand, the cons. For the cons, it will be the physical asset verification. So, while NFTs can confirm the authenticity of the digital representation of a real-world assets, they do not directly authenticate the physical asset itself. So, additional mechanisms such as physical tracking devices or expert appraisals may be required to ensure the physical item matches the NFT's description. The other thing is the standardization, so establishing a consistent and widely accepted standard for representing a real-world assets as NFT is essential. Lack of standardization could lead to confusion and interoperability issues between the different platforms and marketplaces. The other thing for the cons is the ownership dispute. So although NFTs provide a transparent ownership history, they may not resolve ownership disputes that arise from a real-world asset transfers that occurred outside of the blockchain system. And of course, two more is the loss of NFT or private key. You may lose the private key and lose the access to your verification, right? And also you may lose access to your NFT by, for example, sending that to the wrong address, or something may happen strangely. And this, of course, makes real difficult choice, real difficult stuff. So for the last one is the environmental concerns. So some blockchain networks, particularly those using proof of work consensus algorithms, so we're not sure that it will be a problem in the future, but for now it is. So they consume a significant energy, which raises environmental concerns. However, emerging solutions like proof of stake aim to reduce the ecological impact. So, for example, you know that Ethereum goes to the proof of stake. We don't know the future of the other chains yet, but let's hope that it will go for the proof of stake totally.
Next is legal contracts, and this one could be pretty controversial, because of course we have Solidity, which has its smart contracts, which were supposed to be the superior digital contracts. If done properly, they are very secure and it's easy to verify all of the records. And also they are very strict. There is no interpretation. It's all about the data and all about the math. On the other hand, it's also a con, because traditional legal contracts can be tailored to cover a wide array of scenarios, whereas smart contracts are usually tailored for only one specific use case. So while having, for example, a loan contract is great on blockchain, and we already use it in multiple projects, what about highly variable contracts, like for example construction contracts, which could depend on the weather, site condition, and any unforeseen circumstances? So while we clearly have multiple problems, like for example legal recognition, complexity, and privacy concerns, I think that the pros, like the efficiency, security, access and control, and also the fact that we use so many great smart contracts, governance smart contracts with voting and time locks, I think that it would be fair to place it at the A tier.
And another one, so NFTs for supply chain verification. So for the pros, we may have the transparency and traceability. So NFTs in the blockchain can provide a mutable and transparent record of each step in the supply chain. So this enables, for example, stakeholders to trace the origin, manufacturing process, and distribution of products, fostering trust and accountability. Other one, anti-counterfeiting. So NFTs can be linked to physical products using unique identifiers like we mentioned before, RFID tags or maybe QR codes, and this makes it difficult for counterfeit products to enter the supply chain, as the lack of a valid NFT would be a red flag for this. Other thing is a quality assurance. So recording various stages of the supply chain, the blockchain can help identify potential issues and inefficiencies maybe. So this data can be used to improve quality and optimize the supply chain processes. Another one is the supply chain efficiency. So the transparency and data stored in NFTs can help streamline the supply chain process, reducing delays and enhancing overall efficiency, and also the consumer engagement. So supply chain verification using NFTs can empower consumers to make informed purchasing decisions. They can scan the product's NFT or check its details online to learn more about the product's journey and its environmental and social impact, for example. On the other hand, the cons. So it will be, of course, the cost and the infrastructure. So implementing NFT-based supply chain verification may require significant investment in blockchain infrastructure and technical expertise, of course. So small businesses or industries with limited resources may find it challenging to adapt this technology. So it would be hard for overall, because the most of the companies are the small businesses. On the other side, the data accuracy. So while blockchain provides the data, the accuracy of the information recorded on the NFT relies on the data providers. So it will be the various stakeholders in the supply chain. Inaccurate or maybe false information, of course, leads to less effectiveness. So there's a much problem with that. The next thing would be the integration challenges. So integrating NFTs into existing supply chain management systems and processes could be complex and require careful planning to avoid disruptions. So it's a lot of work with that and probably a lot of consumption also. The other thing will be the privacy concerns because supply chain data can be sensitive and confidential. Ensuring the privacy of business information while maintaining transparency for consumers may be a balancing act, but also it's hard to do. And also the environmental impact, as always. So the blockchain-based application, they consume a lot of energy, so you have to take care of this stuff. And hopefully there will be the proof of stake in the future with all the blockchain networks and no other stuff. So maybe something more efficient even. We'll see.
The next one is fun. It's about event tickets. And the first thing that comes to mind is the fraud prevention, because using NFTs as tickets make it practically impossible to duplicate or fake them. And then even if you change your mind and if you want to resell a ticket, NFTs could make it much easier because you would just list the ticket and a buyer would buy it knowing that it's an original one and that it takes only several seconds. Then the owner would change and even the artists would know that there is a new owner for this ticket and they would know the whole life cycle, so maybe useful for the data analysis. But what about the scalpers? They could just buy all of the tickets and resell them because it's just like selling. The owner changes anyways. So we would have to implement some limits to buying the NFTs. And also, if the tickets are publicly visible, not everybody would be happy about it. Like imagine a hardcore metalhead trying to attend a K-pop gig in an incognito mode and then all his friends finding out. The overall value is limited to certain industries, and for this reason, I just put it in the middle of this list. Bitter.
And another one is the NFT for educational credentials. So for the pros, it will be the data integrity. So as always, NFTs on the blockchain provide tamper-proof and immutable record of educational credentials in this case. So this ensures that the information cannot be altered or falsified, of course. So it enhances the authenticity and trustworthiness of the qualifications. And the next one will be the verification and transparency. So NFTs enable easy verification of educational credentials by employers, institutions, or other interested parties maybe. So the transparent nature of the blockchain allows anyone to verify the authenticity of the credentials directly, eliminating the need for time-consuming and really often costly verification processes in this case. The next thing would be the ownership and control. With NFTs, individuals have ownership and control over their educational credentials, so they can share their qualifications securely with potential employers or educational institutions without the need for intermediaries. The next thing, very important, is portability. So NFT-based educational credentials can be easily transferred and accessed across various platforms and institutions. This portability streamlines the application process for jobs or further education. And the other important thing is the recognition of informal learning. So NFTs can represent various forms of learning, including online courses, workshops, certifications from non-traditional educational sources. So this recognition can add value to individual skill beyond formal degree. And also the global accessibility. So NFTs can enable the creation of global educational credential marketplace, allowing employers and institutions from different countries to access their recognized qualifications from around the world. On the other side, we have some cons. So first of all, adoption and standardization. Widespread adoption of NFTs for educational credentials requires standardization and cooperation between educational institutions, employers, and technology providers. So, without common standards, interoperability and acceptance may be challenging. Also, the digital divide. So, not all individuals may have an access to the necessary technology or digital literacy to manage their educational credentials as NFTs. But, of course, this could change in the future, but it may create the divide between the institutions and the recognition of qualifications.
And the last one, the holy grail of NFTs, gambling. And this one is so tricky because it totally depends on the fact whether you've already gambled away all your life savings, and if you want to buy anything, you have to ask for the permission of your wife's new boyfriend, or if you've bought an ape a few years ago and now your LinkedIn says that you're a visionary entrepreneur and a multi-billionaire. Anyway, for both cases, gambling using NFTs is pretty transparent. The ownership of the NFT is clear, and some NFTs can be used across multiple platforms, so you could win an NFT on one platform and sell it on another. And also, if you ask me, losing money at home with NFTs, it's a bit more rewarding than losing money in a casino. So now the challenges. So first off, regulation. Gambling is heavily regulated, so it could be challenging to get approval for your gambling systems. Then the fairness. Unless the code is open sourced and verified by security experts, you never know whether the code base is rigged and the results are not truly random. And now come other cons related to the gambling itself, not really only the NFTs, like for example addiction and price volatility. So to summarize, gambling using NFTs is totally doable. Is it more secure and trustworthy than other ways of gambling? I don't think so. Maybe I'll change the rating when my Lambo arrives, but for now, let's put it into the C tier.
And another one is the NFT as a music and media rights. So for the pros will be ownership and provenance for sure. So NFTs provide a secure and verifiable record of ownership and provenance for digital media assets such as music, videos, artworks, and this ensures that artists and rights holders can establish and protect their intellectual property rights. Also, NFTs can include smart contracts that automate royalty payments to content creators whenever their work is purchased or used, and this streamlines the royalty distribution process and ensures fair compensation for artists. Also, the transparency and accountability. So, NFTs on the blockchain offer transparency in tracking the history of rights transfers and content usage. Creators can monitor how their content is being used and enforce licensing terms more effectively. Another thing is direct interaction with fans. So, NFTs enable direct interaction between artists and their fans, fostering a stronger sense of community and ownership, for example. Artists can offer exclusive content, limited editions, and unique experiences to their most dedicated supporters. Of course, they do it now also, but they can directly use their confirmed rights by NFT, right? So, also the tokenization of creative assets, maybe. NFTs allow traditional ownership, enabling creators to tokenize their creative assets and sell fractions of ownership to investors or funds. This can provide new funding opportunities for artists and content creators. On the other side, we have some cons. So, it will be the copyright infringement. While NFTs can help protect copyright, they do not prevent unauthorized copying of distribution of the content itself. So, enforcement of copyright protection may still require traditional legal measures. Also, environmental impact. So, again, proof of work versus proof of stake. You remember that? Also, the technical barriers. For the most common ones, the adoption of NFTs for media rights may require content creators to familiarize themselves with blockchain technology and then navigate potential technical challenges, or maybe some additional stuff that you have to pay for, like the people that will manage it by you. And also the licensing complexity. So, managing complex licensing agreements through NFTs and smart contracts could be challenging, particularly for large-scale media companies with diverse content libraries. And of course, the digital piracy. So while NFTs can facilitate traceability, determined individuals may still find ways to pirate or illegally distribute content, and especially if the content has been tokenized. After this tier list, we can see that NFTs are not totally useless, as most of people think, and we can have a bright future, even if people will try to deliver those better real use case solutions. But for now, let's hope that some of these solutions will appear in the nearest future. Thank you for watching. See you next time.